Welcome to the Thea Awards Digital Case Studies.
We're so glad you're here with us.
I'm Roberta Perry.
And I'm Pat Mackay.
And thanks to the TEA, our digital selves will be your hosts throughout this series.
Thea Awards Case Studies is our most anticipated event each year. This year, we're presenting them as 7 video segments that will air between August 6th and November 5th. Each segment will have a fabulous guest moderator, many familiar faces, who will be introducing the individual AOA presenters and who will be moderating the Q&A for that particular segment. We're kicking off today with 2 of our very favorite people, this year's recipient of the Buzz Price Thea Award, recognizing a lifetime of distinguished achievements, Nancy Seruto, in conversation with another of our Thea Lifetime Achievers, Phil Hedema. And with that, drum roll, please. Here are President and Chief Creative Executive of the Hedema Group, Phil Hedema and Nancy Seruto.
Hello, my name is Phil Hedema, and we're here today for a conversation with this year's recipient of the TEA's Buzz Price Award for Lifetime Achievement. The Buzz Price Award is given annually to an individual whose contributions exemplify the highest standards of excellence and achievement associated with those who create compelling places and experiences. You know, in past years, the awardees have come from a wide range of backgrounds. They've founded their own companies. They've managed major, iconic international projects. Some have been executives at major entertainment companies, and some have been recognized for their artistic talent. Well, this year's recipient may be unique in that they represent all of these accomplishments. Even more notably, our recipient accomplishes incredible things with a remarkable set of people skills, empowering and inspiring those they work with heart and humanity. We'll learn more about all these things in the hour to come, but for now, it's my great pleasure to introduce my good friend and the 2020 recipient of the Buzz Price Award for Lifetime Achievement, Nancy Seruto. Hi, Nancy.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
I am looking forward to this conversation, and I see that you are in your paint studio.
Yes. Yes, I just chose to be here today because for me it's the happiest room on the planet. And yeah, so I'm very comfortable here.
Great. Well, we'll get a little bit more chance to talk about that as we go, I think. You know, we're in pretty unusual circumstances here today. I wish we could be doing this face to face. I assume you, like the rest of us, have gotten pretty good with talking to each other via these little screens in front of us.
Yeah, I think we all have developed and learned how to do this, but you know, we do really miss each other. We're in this business because we like to work in groups. And so we'll look forward to getting back to that, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into this conversation. I want to go back to the very beginning. Just tell us a little bit about your family and where you grew up.
Well, I tell my family stories a lot because it was a pretty great start. I came from a very big family. My mother's family and my father's family are both large, and my father's family immigrated here from Sicily. And my mother is from the Midwest and from a very academic family. And so when she married my father, these 2 worlds came together. And so for us as kids, and there were 5 kids, of which I was the youngest, we were always in the hubbub of these 2 families. And when they came together, it was always very dynamic and very interesting because they were so completely different. So I feel like I had a very rich start in life, and great inspirational parents, and you know, I attribute in some way my ability to function in the business I'm in now to the fact that I was always navigating a large group of people in a very small house and a lot of family interactions. So I think that's a good start for what we do.
And when you were growing up, did you know what you wanted to be when you became an adult?
I I knew I wanted to be some kind of artist. I wasn't clear on even what my options were. So I did anything artistic I could, and I played piano. I fake tap dance on the kitchen floor with tacks in my shoes. I painted. I was always looking for some expression of artistry, and my older sister was a very, very accomplished artist. She was so good. So I copied and emulated her. But I didn't know really where it was going to lead. And my family really was a working class family and very practical. So being an artist wasn't on their radar for anything they would encourage their kids to do. It was all about learning to work hard and have lots of options and be very practical. That was, the way we were raised.
So I know you went to school at Cal State Long Beach eventually, just like me. What led you there, and what was your major when you were at Cal State Long Beach?
Well, it took me quite a while to get to the point where I was in graduate school at Long Beach. Eventually, I made my way to college, even though, in my father's Sicilian culture, this was an unusual thing for a female to do. So I had to do quite a few shenanigans to convince him that college was right for me. And I convinced him I wanted to be a doctor. This was part of my acting talent, I guess, because I really didn't want to be a doctor. But I knew I wanted to go live away from home and go to college. And when I got to college, I was in San Diego and I discovered theater there. And I switched my major, and that sort of ended my father's willingness to support my college education. So I worked in theater while making my way to school. So by the time I got through undergraduate into graduate school, I was in my late 20s and I had worked professionally. But I also knew that I had learned by doing, and I hadn't had a thorough and complete training. And so I could see I was limited. My toolkit was limited. My problem solving abilities were limited. So I went looking for a teacher. I didn't look for a school. I knew I needed to find a teacher. And so I went from school to school and I walked into Herb Cambert's office and interviewed him, which surprised him. And it didn't start off well, but as he started pulling out his work and showing me what he could do, I knew that I had to, through whatever method, find a way to study with him. Such a magnificent designer and teacher. Really tremendous. And I think you will find many, many people in our industry studied with Herb Cambert. Many designers, very, accomplished designers and technical directors. He really knew how to teach. He was very demanding, but he taught us to be professionals. And that was really where I flipped from someone just trying to find my way to someone who knew their way.
It's always amazing to me how there are clusters of people that seem to form, and in our industry that's particularly true, and Herb Cambert is one of those people. I had the pleasure of knowing Herb a little bit, how impressive and intimidating he was, but there are dozens of people in our industry today, some of the most successful designers I know, who had him as a mentor, and what a difference he made.
Yeah. And he continued to mentor us, up until he passed a few years ago. Actually, he passed just right before I accepted the Thea Award for Pirates. So that was a bittersweet Thea Award year. But every single day from the time I left school until maybe a week or two before that when he fell ill, we would all get a daily missive from Herb Cambert, and it would be some research materials he had gathered or some insights he had and clip art. And he has published catalogs of CDs of visual research that are invaluable. I mean, he was always searching, always learning, always teaching up until the last. And I appreciated that whole thread too.
So you graduated, and what then?
Well, I was working the whole time I was going to school in mostly in lighting design for dance in Los Angeles. Uh, and making my way through school by working as a stagehand at the Long Beach Convention Center because it was paid pretty well, paid better than the jobs on campus. Let's put it that way. So I just kept working as a lighting designer in dance. After graduate school, I started doing more set design because of my training with Herb. Uh, and that led me to meet some people who were painting scenery in the film and television industry, which I came to soon realize it paid pretty well by the hour, and I student loans and debt, and was just trying to find a way to get out into the industry. And so I started painting backdrops and doing scenic art, and that led me to meet the people from Lexington who were just starting. And I started working at Lexington as a painter and a scenic artist. Uh, and that whole phase of my life, which is 16 years, takes me from just putting my foot into the industry to working in the theme park industry to becoming a leader, and really developing some methodologies around design and construction that really enabled us to grow and compete. It was a tremendous learning experience, and people who deliver at the back end of the project see tremendous volume. Uh, so in a place like that, you might do 50 or 60 projects a year. That's where I met people like you. That's where I met, just around everyone that I still know and work with. So that volume was terrific. And I didn't really realize what I was accumulating at the time in terms of experience and the people I was getting to know because I was just working. I was just trying to get scenery out the door every day. But once I left there, it started. I started to recognize that I had a toolkit from that was going to be very helpful to me. That was unique. So yeah, Lexington was an important phase of my life, and the owners, Frank and John, dear friends, and still dear friends with all the people we worked with there.
And after you left Lexington, you decided to open your own company.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, there came a point for me where I had started to wonder, what I might be capable of if I was responding to sort of the daily tasks that just kept coming from somewhere else. Uh, what could I be if I were just to start from scratch and build something of my own design? And the work I had really, really cherished at Lexington, and we did a wide variety of work, was the museum work that we did. And I started to really focus on that and do more and more of that. And we played a much bigger role in of it, which I really, really enjoyed. And I decided that's where I really wanted to focus. And I wanted to be at the front end of that work, but I knew that I didn't want to run a big company after 15 years of doing that every day. So I started very small, just a tiny office with a lamp. Bob Rogers always makes fun of me because he's like, he used to make fun of my lamp. You still have that lamp? So I started small and just kind of put the word out at the end there of what I was interested in doing. And opportunities started to come to me, really great ones, to work on projects like this in the cultural market, science, and technology. And I still continue to work in theme parks, as well. But we really focused on touring exhibitions mostly because it allowed us to stay fairly lean as opposed to larger complex projects where you have facilities to design and all of that. Um, so we loved touring exhibitions. It became our specialty. And I'm really proud of the work we all did. And you and I did some of that work together, which was, I think, for both of us, really meaningful work. It's work where you really learn a lot about yourself and about a subject you might never have steeped yourself in, right?
That's one of the things I like most about what we get to do is you find yourself in a whole new world and have to get pretty smart about it pretty quickly. You never know as much as the experts, but figure out how to tell that story. You
Yeah.
certainly did that on a wide variety of things. You worked on King Tut when he toured the country.
Yeah. And after King Tut, definitely we had a highly visible project that we had done. And so then we really started to get into bigger and bigger work, which was exciting. And after King Tut, we had the opportunity to work with Tavis Smiley on an African American history project, which I reached out to you and your team to collaborate with us on. And so, these projects, they transform you. And they're very different than projects that are based on fiction. And you know this, when you go to tell a story that's somebody else's story, you really are humbled. You pull back. You are in the position of listening and learning for a very long time before you can even put a foot forth and have an idea that you feel grounded in, that you feel is really genuine. And so, that kind of work transforms you. And you grow so much from it. So I still love to stay connected to that kind of work. And on the other hand, you have the pure joy and thrill of the theme park work, which can't be beat. So to be able to do both, that's just, very, very, very grateful for being able to do both those things.
So here you were managing your successful company, and Bob Weiss came knocking at your door.
Well, I met Bob through a traveling exhibition project. I didn't know who he was. Um, the only thing I understood is that he was the media producer on this project. And at some point, he came to LA to my little office with my desk, and we met each other. And then I started to learn more about him and where he had been and what he had done. And he started to learn a little bit more about me. And we started to work together on traveling exhibition projects. At that time, he was not at Disney. He had his own company out of Florida. And we did some really great projects together. We did a project at Rockefeller Center, top of the Rock, which was, again, a great project for me, especially because my father being an immigrant and coming through Ellis Island. Whenever I'm in New York, I feel those roots. I sense him there, and there's part of me that really feels at home in New York. And to stand at the top of the Rock and look out at Ellis Island, my father had long passed before that, so I felt in some way I was honoring him by doing a New York project based in New York. As I know, you have done projects based in New York too, and there's just no other city like it. It is really the heart of this place. Um, then we did a project together, a licensed project through CSI, the television show. But it was an educational exhibit around forensics. Again, what do I know about forensics? And so you try and learn and understand. And Bob's company designed and created an experience that knitted together all the specialties in forensics. And my good fortune is my sister is a forensic toxicologist and was running the Baltimore Police Department lab. And so I was able to reach out to her and ask her to help me navigate the subject matter and make sure we were interpreting it correctly. And that was another great family connection, because to work alongside your sister, who has your whole life been in such a completely different field than you, and learn about each other's work was bonding and great, and a really wonderful a way to get to know her.
So you're managing a successful company and you're doing successful projects. Um, and then one day you get a call from Bob Weiss.
Yeah, so Bob had been at Disney before. When I was working with him, he had his own firm in Florida, Design Island. Uh, and then when the Disney company uh, launched the Shanghai Park project, uh, Bob was asked to join and lead that resort. And he gave me a call, and we were actually in the middle of a couple of things together. And first, asked uh, if I would be interested in, casually maybe doing a little consulting, uh, just in the early phases of the project, that he would, value my input on a few things. And I thought, well, absolutely. How can you pass up something like that? So I really just started uh, really in the blue sky phases, getting to know the company, getting to know the project, working on some strategic design around the park in general, and then started focusing on pirates on that journey. And then when the project was capitalized, and I don't know where I was thinking this was going to go. I thought I would just keep doing this. This is the magic of Bob. And when the project was capitalized, I was given the opportunity to be the producer on Treasure Cove and to create a new Pirates attraction, which was an opportunity of a lifetime. And I had to quickly sort of assess, okay, I still have my company. This means probably going and living in China, a very big change in direction for me. Going to work for Disney, a very big company, from my commitment to I'm only going to work small from now on. A lot of things I had decided about my life and where it was going to go were sort of thrown out the window. But I think when you see a moment like that, where you will grow and learn and work with so many incredible people, it came a point where I just had to put everything aside. Say, I'm just crazy not to do it. I just have to do it. I'll figure it out. Yeah, so a big turn in my life, just about 10 years ago now.
It's been 10 years. That's amazing. Time goes so
I
fast.
know.
so, um, I mean, what an incredible project to be part of. Certainly one of the most spectacular theme parks that's ever been built, ever. And particularly one of the most spectacular attractions that's ever been built, ever, in Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, Talk a little bit about the difference in management that's required from your own company, where you could control everything that went on, to being part of this incredible effort with not only legions of the most talented people on the planet, but departments and a much more complex process and a bigger organization, where you couldn't possibly touch everything yourself personally. What was that like, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, it's overwhelming at first, but you start building relationships one at a time, and you start uh, finding your way. The first relationship, and so much of this is just good fortune and luck, and also the way Bob pairs people. So Bob introduced me to Luke Mayran and said, "I think you two would work well together on this." I had encountered Luke in my previous career, but we had never worked that closely together. So you just trust that, okay, let's do this. And then Luke find that we have this great energy. And Luke has been there for a long time. And so he's able to start to help me navigate, which was tremendously generous of him. And it became a good friend and a terrific partner. And then I brought in some people that I knew from the industry, so that I had a few people that I knew I could click with immediately and not have such a learning curve with. And then other people would come into play, and the most brilliant project manager, and he helped me navigate, and the estimator, who were really key partners. So you start to build this team, and then that team introduces you to other teams, and then eventually you're in the middle of something very big. And because I came in at Concept and Blue Sky, the team was fairly small when I started. But there is this moment when a project gets capitalized that it explodes. The size of the team just gets really large. I had never really seen meetings that large. I was overwhelmed. Like, oh, this is okay. So this is how this company works. There is this group energy that has to be harnessed. Uh, and when you can harness it, you can create, magnificent things. And I realized that that was the way, that was the way to work in this company. And you just have to embrace that and say, this, something great will come out of this. But I will have to think about working in a much larger team than I've ever worked in before. But boy, everybody you meet really knows something, incredible, has some knowledge that they bring to the table that opens up another door, or uh, and it just starts. You start to feed off of that, and it's incredibly exciting. So you make that transition to from oh my God, what is what is this big place, to just thriving by being in the middle of it. And, especially towards the end of the project where thousands of people come together in Shanghai from all over the world, and there's myriads of languages being spoken. Um, there's nothing quite like that. It's a tremendous experience. So one of the things I wasn't aware of, and I've since learned a lot about since I've been at the company, is how much charitable work Disney does. It's extensive between the volunteers program and the conservation fund and the work in that sector. The part of it I've really enjoyed playing a role in is developing a program with Carmen Smith. And I met Carmen Smith 8 years ago. And as soon as I met this incredible woman, I knew that I wanted to work with her in some way. And we built a program that we call the POD program. And what it does is connect Imagineers with nonprofit institutions to help them solve creative problems they might be having. And it's great connectivity. We learn a lot. They get a lot out of the exchange. And we've been doing it for over 8 years. And over, I think, 400 Imagineers have participated. And it's been a very rich thing for us, and a very rewarding thing. So when Bob Iger announced the Children's Hospital Project, because we already had this program in place to work with nonprofits, we were positioned to react very quickly and bring a team of Imagineers together and start that journey. And that began, like many of these do, by listening and learning about the challenges hospitals have. There was over 25 advisors that we spent time with that ranged from hospital workers to parents with children, and just listened and tried to understand what Disney could do to bring some moments of joy into these places where families are in such crisis. So what you're seeing here is a mural program that can be configured any number of ways depending on the hospital. A play app that allows children to connect with each other in the hospital and interact with the murals. Decor for waiting rooms, and the consumer products division jumped in with great designs for wristbands and hospital gowns that children could choose based on their own liking. So it's just been a really rewarding project, and a joy to see how Imagineers thrive when they're able to give back like that.
On top of everything else we've talked about, you're an amazing artist and painter. Can you talk about why you paint and what that means to you?
Well, I've always drawn or painted something since I was little. It's just instinctive for me to do that. And then, of course, I painted professionally as a backdrop artist and a scenic artist, which was a fantastic way to work. And I learned a lot of craft at that time from Herb and Judy and other people. But this kind of painting I do now is my own art, and I paint in plein air, which means I paint live and from nature. So I love to be in nature, uh, and painting nature is a very almost meditative experience. To stand in front of El Capitan or the Grand Canyon with a board, this big, and try to capture the essence of that place. It gets to the root of what it really is inside of me to be a creative person. And I think when you work in the industry and you are outputting all the time, that well can run a little dry. And going and seeing other work and theater and all of that is great. That's all great input. But where do you get to that core piece of you that is able to create from nothing, to face the blank page, to face the blank canvas? You have to be able to understand what your spark is. And this is just a great way for me to hone that all the time. And I've met and trained with some amazing artists who've been very, very generous and in this realm. They are particularly generous artists, plein air painters. There is something about that culture that just wants to share and teach. So I love the people, I love the process, and I think it keeps me in balance in a very demanding industry.
Having had this really incredible breadth of experience through your career, what do you think makes a project most memorable? What is the thing that makes a project come to life and have that special quality to it?
Boy, and every project does it differently, right? But every successful project is something that really resonates with people. Um, I I think, as a creative projects, it has to start with, do you as an audience member relate and enjoy this project? Not as a creator, because you have to distance yourself from your work and put yourself in the boat and imagine going through this thing. And is my mind blown or not? Right? Or am I falling in love with it because I made it? And if
Right.
it's not, then you start to search. So, what did we miss here? Is it too complex? Um, is there not an emotional arc and a curve that takes people on a journey and leaves them feeling like they came out, you know, uh, you know, really feeling fulfilled by having even, partaken of this thing I've created? Um, does it does it resonate in a deep way with people? Does it thrill them? Does it touch their heart? Does it appeal to a sense of adventure? Um, so yeah, I think for me, if it touches people in a really emotional and visceral way, whether it's a very small project or a pirate, it's a good project.
And this sounds like a job interview here. What do you think is the hardest lesson you've ever learned?
I think the hardest lesson I've ever learned is that you can't do everything yourself. So because I started small, because I, I had, and I because I had my own business, um, I've always sort of made my way with whatever tools I had available to me, and I haven't had the benefit of being in a big, rich company with resources like Disney before, and it was a journey I had to take to say, oh, this is bigger than me, because I think I'm a pretty effective person and I can get a lot done myself. But at some point, the project just exceeds you, and then you have to completely shift your thinking. And if you don't do it soon enough, if you don't see that escalation coming and do it soon enough, then you become, a bottleneck, and you become an obstacle to the project moving. So I had to learn that. And once I realized that I didn't have to evaluate myself on what I could do myself, but my success was on what my team was able to do and my ability to pave the way for them to do that. Um, that is, I think, my biggest learning on this most recent journey.
So, one thing I know about you is you have the capability to build amazing teams, whether it's from scratch on a very small project on an ad hoc basis, or now working for the largest entertainment company in the world. But in all those projects, we know what we do can be exciting and creatively challenging, but there's also the reality of schedules and budgets. And there's that inevitable place in a project where things are just hard, and you don't know that you're ever going to get there, or you don't know what that road forward looks like. What do you do to inspire your team and keep them um, motivated?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly in the case of the Shanghai Park and Pirates, we had taken on something very ambitious from the very beginning. And at various stages of the projects, we would hit moments where we would wonder, "Wow, are we really going to be able to do this? This is pretty ambitious. Is this technology going to work? Is this going to come together?" And you could see the team, start to really get concerned. And I think at times like that, um, my choice and the way I manage it is not necessarily to come in and try and cheer people up and give them a pep talk, but first to really try and listen to what the concerns are, give people an avenue for expressing it. And everybody might have a different concern from a different angle. And by listening, you might learn. Like you might learn about something, and you might put a little more weight on that. Oh, I didn't see that. I see why you're concerned now. Whereas if you just came into the room or like, hey, and glossed it over, you as the producer might miss something pretty critical. So I do think you have to give people a voice, but at the end of a session like that, people, that can just be people can really get into a funk. Like, oh, now everybody's expressed their concerns. Now it really feels impossible. But at that point, I think as a leader, you have to stand up and get past whatever your own fears are and say, okay, I've got this. Let's break it down. Let's break it down one bit at a time. What can we do? What can we try? Let's do that. And just start chunking away at it bit by bit by bit. And eventually, you find a way to work through the insurmountable issue. And I think the team feels, as they've been a part of it, they've been a part of the solution, which gives them the confidence to solve the next challenge that comes up too. So we really had to work together. This was a complex project. Many pieces of technology had to come together. And the commitment of the team to work through those moments was the reason there is this attraction today.
Well, we all remember looking backwards all the successes and enjoy that part of it, but I think every project has that hard moment. So it's really helpful to hear sort of your take on how you keep everybody moving, because that's really the reality of what we do. One thing we haven't really talked about yet is, you've had this really broad career and moved yourself through so many different aspects of our industry. And we haven't said that in spite of your father's attitude, you did all this as a woman. And that I'd just be curious to ask you how you think that affected your journey. Did it make it harder? I assume it did. And
Yeah.
how do you think things are changing these days?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really cognizant of it in the beginning. I was just pursuing what I love. And I wasn't really seeing some of the obstacles I was coming up against as being related to the fact I was female until I got into a few environments where it was an aha moment for me. It's like, oh, this is happening to me because I'm a woman. Because I could look around the room and see it wasn't happening to other people, especially when I was working as a stagehand. I was, always on big crews of guys, and they were guys, and I enjoyed them tremendously. But there would be moments in time I think, oh, geez, I can see what's happening to me here. So, as a woman, I think you have to start developing a skill set for dealing with that in a way that is proactive, that puts the room around you at ease. Unfortunately, sometimes that is your burden, to put the room at ease with you so that you can build a team. For me, that's humor. Uh, and in the beginning, maybe I thought I couldn't admit that I didn't know everything, but I found out the power that I had was to say, okay, I don't know everything here. Um, let's fill me in. And I think there is that balance of being vulnerable, um, of having empathy, but also have armor so that you don't take everything that comes your way personally. Just let a lot of things go by, and acting with conviction, not letting it throw you. Uh, and I think women have a little more work on in that area because they are probably challenged more. Um, but I think in the end, you wind up stronger. You wind up with a clear sense of yourself as having made it through those challenges. So, I came up at a time where there were very, very few women at the table when I was at the table. Bidding projects, construction projects. I would show up in Vegas and I would be it. um, but you know, uh, when I got to Shanghai was the moment I realized how much things have changed. And you don't always see it as a woman because you still kind of tend to be working in isolation. But when you have a project that size and you bring together everybody who's working, we looked around and we realized there was an army of us out there. And in every category. This also reflects the leadership, of Bob Weiss and Craig Russell, who
Mhm.
who saw that potential in us and gave us opportunities that were extraordinary. My ability to navigate this um, really is tied to my history. On a personal level, I grew up in this culture dominated by my father's Sicilian culture that, you know, reinforced that the ideal woman would be a wife and a mother, and that was really my only option, and that is where I should be shooting. And so that message came through strong and clear my whole life. And of course, it's reinforced by popular media at the time in the 60s, right? And so you start to hear this over and over again. And even if you rebel against it, and which I did, I mean, I didn't believe it and I fought against it, uh, you you have to acknowledge that maybe it's affecting you at a deeper level. And so you have this struggle on two levels: the struggle against the downward pressure of the culture around you, and the struggle internally with your own self-confidence and your self-esteem that is inevitably going to be affected by this message being so repeated and so consistently through your life. And my ability to really navigate that, I owe completely to my mother. I mean, you have to think of this independent woman. She's college educated, she's supporting herself, she flies airplanes, and she meets this very handsome Sicilian man and falls madly in love, and it, completely turns her life upside down. And so as we were growing up, she had four daughters who she had the highest ambition for, but a father who was reinforcing this message. And so she was always in a delicate balance there, trying to inspire us without creating tremendous conflict with him. And I remember that in high school, this conflict between my father and I was really heating up and was getting very explosive. And she pulled me aside and she said, "Nancy, your father's vision of you is not you. He doesn't he doesn't define you. You are who you make yourself." And I think about the impact of her saying that to me at that phase of my life every day.
Great. So
I'm
what do we
sorry.
need to do to open doors a little bit and bring all those other voices to our community and to our creative and execution teams?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do here. I think we've counted too much on people finding their way here. Of somehow, if so, I really feel that we have to be much more outward reaching. We have to take a piece of our time to go and and make clear what this opportunity is, because it's a great line of work. But I didn't know about this line of work when I was growing up, and I'm not sure how I would have. And so if you're not in the circle, how do you know? How do you even know? And if you don't see it as a welcoming environment, and if you don't see it as an environment that will reflect you or embrace you, that's very discouraging. So we have a lot of work to do to make ourselves an open system, and be proactive about it. Commit our time, and I think young people are one issue, but I think experienced professionals are the other. I think mid-career professionals have a power to transform our industry very, very quickly. And I think personal connections and making personal connections is going to be very important to bringing people into the industry and making sure they're welcome and they'll succeed here and have a path.
So I have one last question for you. If you were talking to a room full of young people who were just starting out in the industry, what would you tell them?
Well, I guess I would ask them to find a way to identify the thing that they are the most passionate about, which is not easy. I mean, some people may be born with an affinity towards one thing, and other people need to search, but it's important to land on it. And then don't let go of it. Because when I think you're young, it's all about passion and interest. And then the hard work of getting to what you want to get can get in the way, and you might say, it's not worth it to me, it's too risky, I don't have any family support. There are a lot of things that can discourage you. But you also will hear people with a lot of regrets for not staying with something that they had passion for. So I think if you're passionate about something, that's A. And then B, you have to be willing to do the hard work, and don't get discouraged. And I could have continued on in medical school and been a very dispassionate doctor. That road was paved for me. It would have been the most direct way to somewhere, right? So I think knowing your heart, knowing your strengths, knowing your passion, and then doing the work.
Well, I could only wish for any of those young people that they'd have a chance to work with you and learn from you. This has been a fantastic conversation. I always enjoy talking to you, and the only real regret I have about all of this is that you're not going to get to stand on that stage like the rest of us did and hear the applause, because you are so loved in this industry and so respected. But all I can say is congratulations, and it's been a wonderful time talking to you for an hour.
Thank you, Phil. And the ceremony is one thing, but I have to say, being honored by my peers has been a tremendously moving thing for me. And whether I see people face to face, to find that I was given this honor this year, very, very moving. And I'm very honored. And I look forward to the day that we can all celebrate together. But I think at that point, we'll just be celebrating the fact that we're together.
Well, I'll look forward to that. Thanks so much, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil, and many, many congratulations once again to Nancy.
Okay, it's almost a wrap for today. Our next segment airs August 20, when JRA's Sean McCoy brings together some extraordinary museum experiences from around the globe.